The ships arrived on a Tuesday morning, blocking out the sun. Kang Taeyang stood on the observation deck of New Haven Colony, staring at the massive vessels that hung in the sky like dark moons. He was a scientist, a man who studied alien life, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this moment. The ships were not made of metal or stone. They looked alive, pulsing with soft purple light, their surfaces moving like skin. "They're beautiful," whispered Park Hana beside him. She was his closest friend and fellow researcher. Her hands shook as she held her scanner, trying to read the ship's composition. "They're terrifying," Taeyang replied honestly. The Valtherians had been broadcasting messages for 3 weeks, asking for a peaceful meeting. Earth's government had finally agreed, and New Haven was chosen as the contact point. The colony was small, far from Earth, and if things went wrong, the loss would be manageable. Taeyang tried not to think about that. A shuttle descended from the largest ship. It moved without sound, landing gently in the colony's main square. Taeyang and Hana hurried down to meet it, along with Governor Yoon and a dozen security officers. The shuttle's door opened like a flower blooming. What stepped out took Taeyang's breath away. She was tall, perhaps 8 feet, with skin that shifted between deep blue and silver. Her eyes were enormous, filled with stars that seemed to actually move. She wore robes that flowed around her like water, and when she moved, reality itself seemed to bend slightly. Behind her came 6 attendants, similar in appearance but smaller, less radiant. "I am Queen Vayara," she said, and her voice was like music, speaking perfect English. "Ruler of the Valtherian Empire. I come in peace." Governor Yoon stepped forward, stammering through the prepared greeting. Taeyang barely heard it. He was studying the Queen, his scientific mind working automatically. Her species was ancient, that much was obvious. The way she carried herself spoke of millennia of existence. The Queen's eyes swept across the gathered humans, and for a brief moment, they locked onto Taeyang. He felt something like electricity run through him. Then her gaze moved on, and he could breathe again. The next 3 weeks were a blur of meetings and cultural exchanges. The Valtherians were polite, generous, and utterly fascinating. They showed the humans technology that seemed like magic. They spoke of an empire spanning 400 star systems. They offered friendship and trade, but they never explained why they had really come. Taeyang spent his days studying the Valtherians, taking biological samples, running tests. They allowed all of it with patient amusement. At night he would meet with Hana to discuss their findings. "They're dying," Hana said one evening, showing him her data. "Look at their cellular structure. It's perfect, too perfect. There's no variation, no room for change." "Evolution needs mistakes," Taeyang murmured, understanding. "They've removed all the errors from their DNA, and now they can't adapt anymore. Whatever they are now, they'll be forever. If a new disease comes along or a new threat, they can't evolve to meet it." Taeyang stared at the data, his mind racing. That's why they're here. They need new genetic material. They need our messy, imperfect human DNA. On the 22nd day, Queen Vayara requested a private meeting with Taeyang. No one else, not even Hana or the governor. Just him. He found her in a garden the Valtherians had grown overnight. Plants from a dozen worlds bloomed around them, filling the air with strange scents. The Queen stood by a fountain, her back to him. "Kang Taeyang," she said without turning. "Do you know why I have come to your world?" "I think so, Your Majesty." "You need genetic diversity." "Yes." She turned to face him, and her expression was sad. "My people have existed for 12 million years. We have seen stars born and die. We have created wonders beyond your imagination. But we are ending. There is a sickness among us, a plague we call the stillness. It shuts down our minds, leaving us as empty shells. We cannot fight it because we cannot change anymore." "I'm sorry," Taeyang said, and he meant it. "Your species is young, barely out of your cradle world. You are chaotic and unpredictable. You make mistakes constantly. Your DNA is filled with errors and random mutations." She smiled slightly. "It is perfect. When we studied your genetic code, we found the answer to the stillness. Human DNA can resist it." Taeyang felt cold despite the warm garden air. "What are you asking?" "I wish to create children," Vayara said simply. "Hybrids of my species and yours. They will be my heirs, the future of the Valtherian Empire. And I wish for you to be their father." The words hung in the air between them. Taeyang's mind went blank, then filled with 1,000 questions at once. "Why me?" he finally asked. "I have observed all the humans on this colony. You have something special, Taeyang. You solve problems in ways we never consider. You feel deeply but think clearly. You are kind but not weak. These are traits my children will need. She stepped closer. I am not asking you to love me. I am not even asking you to touch me. Our reproduction is done through genetic engineering. But I am asking you to give humanity's gift to my people, to save us, and if I refuse, then I will ask another. But I do not think another is right.
You are the one, Taeyang.
I know this. What about Earth? What about my people? This could change everything. It will change everything, Vayara agreed. Your species will become important in galactic politics overnight. We will share our technology, our knowledge, but there will be a price. Fame is never simple. Taeyang thought of his small apartment back on Earth, his quiet life studying microbes under a microscope, his family who barely understood his work. All of that would be gone. He would become a historical figure, for better or worse. I need time to think, he said, of course, but not too much time. My people are dying, Taeyang. Every day we wait, more fall to the stillness. That night, Taeyang sat with Hana on the observation deck watching the Valtharian ships. They asked you, didn't they? Hana said quietly, how did you know? The way the Queen looks at you. The way her attendants watch you. Everyone can see it except you. She took his hand. What will you do? I don't know. This is bigger than me, Hana. This is about all of humanity. No, Hana said firmly. This is about you. Your choice, your life. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, but even as she said it, Taeyang knew she was wrong. This choice would never be just about him. It would echo through history, changing the destiny of two species. He looked up at the stars, wondering what kind of future waited there. Tomorrow, he would give the Queen his answer. Taeyang said yes, but with conditions. He stood before Queen Vayara in the garden again, this time with Governor Yoon and Earth's ambassador present via hologram. His hands were steady, his voice clear. I will do this, he said, but I want to understand your people first. I want to learn your culture, your biology, your laws. I want to know what kind of world my children will grow up in. Vayara's eyes shimmered with something that might have been respect. That is wise. You may come to my worldship. You may ask any questions you wish. You may access any knowledge you desire. I want Park Hana to come with me, as my advisor. Agreed. And I want guarantees. Written agreements that Earth remains sovereign, that humanity won't become subjects of your empire, that we'll share technology equally. The governor looked relieved. The ambassador smiled. Vayara simply nodded. You negotiate like someone who has done this before, the Queen said. I negotiate like someone who reads history books, Taeyang replied. I've seen what happens when advanced civilizations meet primitive ones. It never ends well for the primitive side. You are not primitive. You are young. There is a difference. Vayara extended her hand in a human gesture. Do we have an agreement? Taeyang shook her hand. Her skin was cool and smooth like polished stone. We have an agreement. 3 days later, Taeyang and Hana boarded a Valtharian shuttle. They brought 2 suitcases of clothes and supplies, though the Valtharians assured them everything would be provided. As the shuttle rose into the sky, Taeyang watched New Haven Colony shrink below him. He wondered if he would ever see it the same way again. The world ship was beyond anything Taeyang had imagined. It was the size of a small planet, a massive sphere covered in forests, oceans, and cities. Millions of Valtharians lived here, going about their daily lives. The shuttle landed in the Royal District, where towers of living crystal rose into an artificial sky. Welcome to Valtara Prime, Vayara said as they stepped out, the heart of our empire. The palace was a structure of impossible beauty, walls that changed color with the light, gardens that grew in midair, water that flowed upward into fountains of mist. Servants hurried about silently, their movements graceful and precise. Taeyang and Hana were given rooms in the guest wing. Each room was larger than Taeyang's entire apartment back home, filled with furniture that adjusted to their bodies and needs automatically. This is insane, Hana whispered that first night. We're living in a palace with an alien queen. I know, Taeyang said, but he was already reading through the data tablets the Valtharians had given him. Information about their biology, their history, their culture. He had a lot to learn. The next weeks were intense. Every morning, Taeyang met with Valtharian scientists who explained their reproductive technology. It was nothing like human biology. There would be no physical contact, no traditional conception. Instead, genetic material would be combined in a laboratory, modified and enhanced, then grown in artificial wombs. We can remove genetic diseases, Dr. Kavesh explained. He was one of the royal physicians, an elderly Valtharian with silver skin. We can enhance intelligence, strength, longevity. We can create the perfect child. But you can't create adaptability, Taiyang said. That's what you need from humans. Exactly. Your species' imperfection is your strength. Random mutations, genetic drift, environmental adaptation, these are things we lost long ago. In the afternoons, Taiyang studied Valtharian culture. He learned about their complex social hierarchies, their long lives that could span thousands of years, their art and philosophy. He met Lady Mirai, a human woman who had married a Valtharian nobleman 30 years ago. It's lonely, she told him honestly over tea. They respect me, even love me in their way. But I'm always different. Always the short-lived one, the emotional one, the unpredictable one. My husband has lived for 8,000 years. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just a brief moment in his long life. Do you regret it? Taiyang asked. No. But I want you to understand what you're choosing. Your children will be half Valtharian. They'll live for millennia after you're gone. They'll have responsibilities you can't imagine. And you'll always be the human father, the outsider who gave them their strange, chaotic human half. The words haunted Taiyang, but he pushed forward. In the evenings, he met with Vayara herself. She taught him about leadership and governance, about the weight of ruling billions of lives. She was surprisingly easy to talk to, once he got past the initial awe of her presence. Why did you really choose me? He asked one night as they walked through a garden of glowing flowers. I told you, you have qualities we need, but there are smarter humans, stronger humans, more important humans. Vayara stopped and looked at him. Do you know what I saw when I first looked into your eyes? No, hope. Despite your fear, despite your doubts, you looked at my ships and felt hope. Most beings see our power and feel only terror or greed. But you felt hope. That is rare, Taiyang. That is precious. While Taiyang learned about Valtharians, Hana was busy in the laboratories. She worked with Valtharian geneticists, studying the stillness. The plague was worse than they had thought. Millions were infected and the number grew daily. It attacks their neural networks, Hana explained to Taiyang. Their brains are so perfectly organized that the virus can spread through them like fire through dry grass. But human brains are messy, chaotic. The virus can't establish patterns in our neurons. That's why hybrid children might be immune. Might be? We won't know for sure until we try. 2 months after arriving on the world ship, Taiyang attended his first Royal Council meeting. He sat beside Vayara as the council discussed the hybrid program. Not everyone was happy about it. Prince Dekor stood to speak. He was Vayara's current heir, a towering figure with dark blue skin and cold eyes. Your Majesty, this human cannot understand our ways. He has lived barely 30 years. How can he father children who will rule for millennia? His youth is part of his value, Vayara replied calmly. He has not lived long enough to become rigid in his thinking. He is inferior. Another council member protested. Our species has evolved beyond his kind. Mixing our bloodlines with such primitive genetics is madness. Taiyang felt anger rise in his chest. Before Vayara could respond, he stood. You call us primitive, he said, his voice carrying through the huge chamber. Maybe we are. We've only been in space for a few centuries. We still fight wars over resources and ideologies. We make mistakes constantly. But you know what? We survive, we adapt, we overcome. Your perfect species is dying from a simple virus because you've lost the ability to change. So maybe being primitive isn't such a bad thing. Silence fell over the council. Several members looked shocked. Prince Dekor's expression was unreadable. Then Vayara laughed, a sound like chiming bells. You see? This is why I chose him. No Valtharian would dare speak to the council this way. We have forgotten how to challenge authority, how to take risks. But humans remember. The council session ended shortly after. As Taiyang left, he felt Dekor's eyes on his back. The prince was not pleased. That night, Hana found Taiyang on an observation deck staring out at the stars. You made an enemy today, she said. I know. But I won't apologize for defending humanity. I'm not asking you to. I'm proud of you. She handed him a data pad. The genetic analysis is complete. We're ready to begin the process whenever you are. Taiyang took the pad, his hands suddenly cold. This was it. The point of no return. 3 children, he read. The optimum number for genetic diversity and political stability. 3 chances to save a species, Hana said softly. Taeyang thought of his family on Earth. His mother who wanted him to be a teacher. His father who never understood why he studied aliens. They would see this news soon, broadcast across human space. Their son, father to alien royalty. Let's do it, he said finally. Let's make history. The laboratory was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Taeyang sat in a comfortable chair while Dr. Kavesh took samples of his genetic material. The process was simple, painless, and utterly strange. In a few hours, his DNA would be combined with the Queen's, modified by Valtharian technology and placed in artificial wombs. Will it hurt them? Taeyang asked, watching the samples being carried away in glowing containers. The children, I mean. Growing in machines instead of a mother's body? Dr. Kavesh's expression softened. The gestation chambers provide everything a natural womb would and more. Temperature, nutrients, sensory stimulation. We even play music and stories to them. They will be loved before they are born. 3 days later, the announcement was made across both human and Valtharian space. The Queen would have 3 hybrid children. The procedure was successful. The embryos were developing normally. Taeyang watched the news broadcast from Earth with Hana. Reactions were mixed. Some humans celebrated, calling it the beginning of a new age. Others protested, saying humanity's genetic purity was being compromised. Religious leaders debated whether hybrid children had souls. Politicians argued about the implications for Earth's sovereignty. They're talking about our children like they're political tools, Taeyang said bitterly. That's because they are, Hana replied. Whether we like it or not, these children will be symbols. Bridges between species. The first of their kind. In Valtharian space, the reaction was even more intense. Traditional factions called the hybrids abominations. They protested outside the royal palace, their chants echoing through the crystal towers. Security had to be increased around the gestation chambers. Taeyang visited the chambers every day. 3 pods of clear material, each containing a tiny growing life. They looked alien to him at first, but he could see human features emerging as they developed. Fingers, eyes, the curve of a spine. That's Lee Yeona, he said, pointing to the first pod. He had been given the honor of naming them, combining Korean and Valtharian naming traditions. Choi Jiwan, Song Nari, my daughters and son. Queen Vayara often joined him during these visits. She would place her hand on the pods, her expression tender. I have ruled for 9,000 years, she told him once. I have seen the birth and death of civilizations, but I have never felt what I feel now. This is hope, Taeyang, real hope. But not everyone shared that hope. The attack came on a quiet night 3 months into the pregnancy. Taeyang was asleep when alarms blared through the palace. He ran from his room to find guards rushing through the corridors, their weapons drawn. The gestation chamber, one guard shouted. Someone's trying to destroy them. Taeyang's blood went cold. He ran faster than he had ever run, his heart pounding. He reached the laboratory to find chaos. Smoke filled the air. Several guards lay unconscious, and standing before the gestation pods was a figure in dark robes holding a weapon that glowed with dangerous energy. Stop, Taeyang shouted. The figure turned. It was a Valtharian, but Taeyang didn't recognize them. Their face was hidden behind a mask. These abominations must not live, the attacker said. They corrupt our pure bloodline. They weaken our species. They'll save your species. Taeyang moved closer, placing himself between the attacker and the pods. The stillness is killing you. These children are the cure. Better to die pure than live corrupted. The attacker raised the weapon. Time seemed to slow. Taeyang saw the energy building, saw the pods behind him with their precious cargo. His children. 3 lives that hadn't even begun yet. He didn't think. He just moved. Taeyang threw himself at the attacker, knocking the weapon aside. The energy blast hit the ceiling instead of the pods, bringing down chunks of crystal. They fell together, struggling. The attacker was stronger, but Taeyang fought with desperate fury. Then guards arrived, pulling them apart. The attacker was subdued, mask ripped away. Taeyang stared in shock. It was Prince Dekor. The prince didn't resist as he was dragged away. He simply looked at Taeyang with cold hatred. You have doomed us all, human. Taeyang collapsed against the wall, shaking. Hana rushed in and grabbed him, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? Are you okay? The children, Taeyang gasped. Check the children. Dr. Kavesh examined the pods carefully. After long minutes, he smiled with relief. They're safe. Completely unharmed, Taeyang closed his eyes, tears streaming down his face. He had almost lost them before they were even born. The trial of Prince Dacor shocked the Empire. He confessed everything. He had planned the attack with several traditionalist counselors, believing the hybrid children would replace him as heir. He thought he was saving Valtherian culture from human contamination. Queen Vayara's judgment was swift. Dacor was stripped of his title and position but not executed. My son acted out of fear, she declared.
Fear of change, fear of the unknown.
But fear cannot be answered with death. He will live to see that he was wrong. Dacor was exiled to a remote colony world. As guards led him away, he looked at Taeyang one last time. I will never accept them, he said quietly. Never. You don't have to accept them, Taeyang replied. But you failed to kill them. That's what matters. The assassination attempt changed everything. Suddenly, Taeyang was no longer just a human scientist who had agreed to help aliens. He was the father who had thrown himself in front of danger to protect his children. Valtherians who had been skeptical began to respect him. Those who had protested grew quieter. You proved something important, Vayara told him. You proved that love exists between species. That parenthood is not about genetics but about sacrifice. The children grew quickly. Valtherian gestation was faster than human, especially with artificial enhancement. At 6 months, the pods were ready to open. Taeyang stood with Vayara and Hana as Dr. Kavesh initiated the birth sequence. The pods drained of their fluids. The walls became transparent, and 3 tiny beings opened their eyes for the first time. Yona came first. She was perfect with silver blue skin and dark human hair. Her eyes were large like Valtherian eyes but shaped like human eyes. When she saw Taeyang, she reached toward him with tiny hands. Hello, little one, Taeyang whispered, taking her in his arms. She was warm and soft, and she made a small cooing sound that was neither human nor Valtherian, but something new. Jiwan was next, with darker blue skin and a strong, sturdy build. He cried loudly when removed from his pod, a very human sound that made everyone laugh. Nari was the smallest, with pale silver skin that seemed to glow slightly. She was quiet, watching everything with curious eyes that already seemed wise. They're beautiful, Vayara said softly, holding Nari. They're perfect. They're ours, Taeyang corrected gently. Not perfect. Not tools. Not symbols. Just children who deserve to be loved. News of the birth spread across the galaxy within hours. Images of the hybrid children were broadcast on every channel. Some called them miracles. Others called them monsters. But they existed now, real and alive, and the galaxy would have to accept them. That night, Taeyang sat alone with his children for the first time. They were in special cradles that monitored their health, but he pulled a chair close so he could watch them sleep. I don't know what kind of father I'll be, he told them quietly. I don't know if I can teach you everything you need to know. You'll grow up in 2 worlds, never fully belonging to either. People will expect great things from you. They'll use you for politics and power. But I promise you this. I will always love you. I will always protect you. And I will teach you to be kind, to be brave, and to make your own choices. That's the most important thing humans can give you, the freedom to choose who you become. Yona stirred in her sleep as if she heard him. Taeyang smiled through tears. His children were born. His children were alive. Against all odds, they existed, and the galaxy would never be the same. The children grew impossibly fast. What took human children years took them only months. By their first birthday, they looked like human 5-year-olds. By their second, they resembled teenagers. It broke Taeyang's heart even as it amazed him. I'm missing their childhood, he told Hana one evening, watching the children practice combat training with their Valtherian tutors. They're growing up without me. You see them every day, Hana pointed out. I know, but I blink and they're different, bigger, smarter, more alien. He sighed. Yesterday, Jiwan was solving quantum physics equations. He's 2 years old, Hana, 2. He's also half Valtherian. Their intelligence develops differently. But it wasn't just intelligence. Each child had developed unique abilities that surprised even the Valtherian scientists. Yona could hear thoughts. Not just surface feelings, but actual words and ideas. She could communicate telepathically with any species, translating concepts across vast differences in biology and culture. Taeyang discovered this when she was 18 months old and suddenly spoke to him in his mind, her voice clear and warm. Father, why are you sad? she had asked without moving her lips. The shock nearly made him fall over. How are you doing that? I don't know. I can hear everyone's thoughts if I try. Is that wrong? No, sweetheart, just surprising. Jiwan's gift was physical. His body could adapt to any environment within minutes. Taeyang watched in horror as his son jumped into a pool of water that would have frozen a human solid, only to see Jiwan emerge laughing, his skin having adjusted to withstand the temperature. Dad, watch this, Jiwan would say, then hold his breath underwater for an hour. Or run at speeds that left him a blur. Or lift weights that should have crushed him. You're going to give me a heart attack, Taeyang told him constantly. Nari was different, quieter. She spent hours in the palace's medical wing, watching doctors work. One day she placed her hands on a Valtherian suffering from the stillness. Light glowed from her palms. When she pulled away, the patient's symptoms had decreased. She's healing them, Dr. Kavesh whispered in awe. She's actually curing the stillness. Word spread quickly. Valtherians who had been hostile to the hybrids suddenly changed their minds. The child could heal their plague. She was a gift from the stars, but Taeyang worried about the pressure this put on his daughter. You don't have to heal everyone, he told her. You're allowed to just be a child. But I can help, Father, Nari said in her soft voice. If I can help, shouldn't I? Help, yes! But don't lose yourself in helping others. Remember to live your own life, too. Teaching them about humanity became Taeyang's obsession. They learned Valtherian culture from their tutors, but he made sure they learned human culture from him. He taught them Korean phrases, told them stories from Earth's history, played them human music. Why do humans make so many mistakes? Yona asked once after learning about Earth's wars. Because we're young and we're learning, Taeyang explained. Valtherians have had millions of years to figure things out. We've only had a few thousand. We're messy and chaotic, but that's not always bad. The Valtherians say chaos is inefficient, Jiwan said. The Valtherians are dying because they eliminated chaos. Taeyang countered. Sometimes messy is good. Sometimes making mistakes is how you learn. The children absorbed his lessons like sponges, but he could see them struggling with their dual nature. They were too human for Valtherians and too Valtherian for humans. They belonged nowhere completely. It came to a head when they were 3 years old, looking and acting like human young adults. A group of Valtherian nobles was visiting the palace. One of them made a comment about the half-breeds when he thought the children couldn't hear. Jiwan exploded with rage. His skin darkened to deep black, his body temperature rose, and he nearly attacked the noble before Taeyang stopped him. He called us half-breeds, Jiwan shouted. Like we're some kind of mistake. You're not a mistake, Taeyang said firmly, holding his son's shoulders. You're exactly what the universe needed. But you can't attack everyone who insults you. You're going to be leaders someday. Leaders have to be bigger than insults. I don't want to be a leader, Jiwan said, his voice breaking. I just want to know where I belong. Taeyang pulled him into a hug. You belong with your sisters, with your family, with people who love you. That's all that matters. While Taeyang dealt with his children's emotional struggles, Hana was working on securing humanity's future. The technology transfer from the Valtherians had begun, but it was slow and controlled. Many Valtherians still didn't trust humans with advanced technology. We need formal agreements, Hana told Taeyang. Laws that protect both species. Right now, everything depends on Veyara's goodwill. What happens if she dies or steps down? The children will rule, Taeyang said. Children who are half human but raised in Valtherian culture. We need to make sure humanity has a voice in the Empire. Together, they proposed the Soul Accords, named after Earth's capital city. The agreements would establish humans as equal partners in the Valtherian Empire, not subjects. They would share technology freely, but maintain sovereignty over human worlds. And most importantly, human genetic material would be protected. No species could use human DNA without explicit consent. The proposal sparked fierce debate in the Royal Council. Many Valtherians saw it as humans asking for too much, but Veyara surprised everyone by supporting it completely. These accords are necessary, she declared, not just for humans but for all species. The Valtherian Empire has always been about unity, not domination. If we cannot treat our partners as equals, we deserve to fall. The accords passed by a narrow vote. Taeyang watched from the gallery, holding his breath until the final count. When it was done, Hana grabbed his hand and squeezed. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually protected humanity's future." But their victory was short-lived. News came from the frontier. A fleet of unknown ships had entered Valtherian space. They were massive, made of some dark material that absorbed scanner beams. They didn't respond to hails. They just kept coming. Could they be related to the stillness? Dr. Kavish wondered. "Send ships to intercept," Vayara ordered. "Full diplomatic protocols. We must know who they are." The Valtherian fleet met the unknown ships at the border. For 3 days they tried to communicate. Then the unknown ships opened fire. The battle was brief and brutal. Valtherian vessels were destroyed with weapons that seemed to ignore shields and armor. The few ships that escaped brought terrible news. The enemy was looking for something. They were scanning every world, every station. "They're looking for the hybrids," Vayara said grimly. "Someone told them about the children." Taeyang felt ice in his stomach. Who? Who would betray us?" The answer came quickly. Dakor had escaped from his exile. He had contacted the unknown species, told them about the hybrid children and their unique abilities. He had led them straight to the Empire's heart. "He wants revenge," Hana said. "He couldn't kill the children himself, so he brought someone else to do it." The unknown fleet was heading for Valtara Prime. They would arrive in 5 days. Vayara called an emergency meeting. Military commanders, scientists, and politicians crowded into the war room. Taeyang stood with his children, who had insisted on being present. "We must evacuate the children," one general suggested. "Hide them somewhere safe." "No," Yona said clearly. Everyone turned to look at her. She stood tall, her eyes blazing with determination. "We won't hide. We didn't ask to be born, but we're here now, and if someone wants to hurt us, they'll have to face us." "Your children," the general protested. "We're the children of 2 species," Nari added softly. "We're symbols of what the galaxy can become. If we hide now, what message does that send? That you're wise enough to survive," Taeyang said, his voice shaking. "Please let us get you to safety." "Father," Jiwan said, placing a hand on Taeyang's shoulder. His son was already taller than him. "You taught us to be brave. You taught us that some things are worth fighting for. Let us prove we learned those lessons." Taeyang looked at his 3 children standing together, united. They were so young but already so strong. He wanted to protect them, to hide them away from all danger. But they weren't just his children anymore. They were leaders, heroes, the future. "All right," he said finally. "We face this together." The enemy fleet arrived like a dark storm, blocking out the stars around Valtara Prime. There were hundreds of ships, each larger than anything the Valtherians had built. They moved with purpose, surrounding the world ship. Taeyang stood in the command center with Vayara, watching the displays. His children were beside him, calm despite the danger. Hana worked at a console, analyzing the enemy vessels. "They're not organic like Valtherian ships," she reported. "Pure technology, advanced beyond anything we've seen." A communication request came through. Vayara accepted it. The screen filled with a figure unlike anything Taeyang had ever seen. It was humanoid but wrong, its body seeming to shift and phase like it wasn't quite real. Its voice echoed as if coming from far away. "I am Collector Jean," it said. "We have come for the hybrid abominations. Surrender them and your species may survive." "The children are under my protection," Vayara said coldly. "Leave now, or face the full might of the Valtherian Empire. Your empire is dying. Your people fade to the stillness. We created that plague specifically for you, perfect Valtherians. You cannot fight us." The words hit like a bomb. Taeyang stared at the screen in horror. "You created the stillness? You've been killing them on purpose?" "Valtherians grew too powerful," Jean replied. "They had to be reduced. But now you have created something new. Something that can resist our plague. This cannot be allowed. Perfection must be maintained. Chaos must be eliminated." "You're afraid of us," Yona said suddenly, her voice ringing clear. Taeyang tried to stop her from speaking, but she stepped forward. "You're afraid that humans and Valtherians together will become something you can't control." Jean's image flickered. "You are the product of chaos breeding with order. You are unnatural. You must be eliminated." The communication ended. The enemy ships began to move, weapons powering up. "Battle stations," Vayara commanded. "All ships, defensive positions. Protect the world ship at all costs." The battle began. Valtherian vessels, sleek and powerful, engaged the enemy. Energy beams lit up the darkness. Explosions bloomed like flowers. But the enemy ships were too strong. Their weapons cut through Valtharian shields like paper. "We're losing," a commander reported. "They're too advanced." Jiwan watched the battle, his body tense. "I can help. Let me go out there." "Absolutely not," Taeyang said immediately. "Father, I can adapt to space. I can board their ships, sabotage them from inside. You'll die. Not if I'm fast enough." Jiwan looked at his father, his eyes pleading. "You taught me that some things are worth fighting for. Let me fight." Before Taeyang could respond, Nari spoke. "I can heal our wounded ships. If I can heal people, maybe I can heal the biological systems in our vessels. And I can coordinate our forces telepathically," Yona added. "No communication delay. Perfect synchronization." Vayara looked at the children, then at Taeyang. "It's their choice. They're 3 years old." Taeyang shouted. "They're leaders," Vayara said gently. "And they're right. They're the only chance we have." Taeyang looked at his children, these impossible beings he had helped create. They were so young, but they stood like warriors, ready to fight for their people. "Both their peoples. I can't lose you," he whispered. "You won't," Yona said, hugging him. "We're stronger together. You taught us that." The children moved into action. Yona entered a meditation chamber, her mind reaching out across the fleet. Suddenly, every Valtharian ship was connected. Pilots could see through each other's eyes, anticipate each other's moves. The fleet began fighting as one organism. Nari placed her hands on the world ship's living walls. Light spread from her touch, flowing through the biological systems. Damaged ships that had been drifting suddenly powered back up, their wounds closing. Jiwan suited up in modified armor and launched himself into space. His body adapted instantly, his skin becoming a flexible shield against vacuum and radiation. He flew toward an enemy ship like a missile, his speed impossible to track. Taeyang watched through cameras, his heart in his throat. He saw his son land on an enemy vessel, saw him tear through its hull with bare hands enhanced by his adaptive abilities. Inside, Jiwan's sabotage systems moving so fast the enemy couldn't target him. "He's magnificent," Vayara breathed. One by one, enemy ships went dark as Jiwan disabled them. The Valtharian fleet, coordinated by Yona and healed by Nari, pushed forward. The tide of battle began to turn, but then Taeyang saw it. A massive enemy ship, larger than all the others, moving toward the world ship. Its weapons were charging with enough power to destroy Valtara Prime completely. "That's their flagship," Hana said, checking sensors. "If they fire, we're done." "All ships target that vessel," Vayara commanded. But before anyone could act, the 3 children moved as one. Yona coordinated them telepathically. Nari channeled her healing energy into a shield around the world ship. And Jiwan, still in space, launched himself at the flagship. "No!" Taeyang screamed. "Jiwan, it's too big." But his son didn't stop. He flew into the flagship's weapon port just as it was firing. There was a moment of terrible silence. Then the flagship exploded from within. The blast was enormous, lighting up space like a new sun. Taeyang stared at the screen, searching desperately for his son. "Jiwan. Jiwan, answer me," static. Then faintly a voice. "Dad, I'm okay." That was intense. Taeyang collapsed against a console, relief making him weak. On the screen he saw a small figure flying away from the explosion, scorched but alive. Jiwan's adaptive abilities had saved him at the last second. With their flagship destroyed, the enemy fleet retreated. They jumped to faster-than-light speeds and vanished, leaving the Valtharian fleet victorious but battered. The children returned to the command center, exhausted but unharmed. Taeyang grabbed all 3 of them, holding them tight. "Don't ever do that again," he said, crying. "We had to," Yona said softly. "It's what we were made for, to protect both our peoples." In the days following the battle, everything changed. The children had proven themselves not just as symbols, but as heroes. Valtharians who had doubted them now celebrated them. Humans across the galaxy told stories about the hybrid warriors who had saved an empire. But more importantly, other species took notice. If humans and Valtharians together could create such powerful offspring, what else could interspecies cooperation achieve? Ambassadors from a dozen races came to Valtara Prime asking about alliances and partnerships. "You've changed the galaxy," Vayara told Taeyang. "Not with weapons or conquest, but with hope. With proof that different species can become something greater together." 3 months later, Vayara made an announcement that shocked everyone. She was stepping down as queen. After 9,000 years of rule, she was retiring. My children will rule in my place, she declared. Yona will govern the core worlds. Jiwan will lead our expansion into new territories. Nari will head our medical and humanitarian efforts. It is time for a new generation to lead. But the children surprised everyone further. They refused to rule as traditional monarchs. We don't want absolute power, Yona explained to the Royal Council. Our father taught us about human democracy, about giving people choices. We'll rule, but with councils elected by the people. We'll lead, but we'll listen. The reforms they proposed were radical, elected representatives, rights for all species, laws protecting individual freedoms. Many traditional Valtharians were outraged, but younger generations supported the changes enthusiastically. You're remaking the Empire in humanity's image, Diacor said bitterly. He had been captured after the battle, brought back to face justice. You're destroying everything we were. No, Nari said gently. We're helping you become something better, something that can survive. Diacor was sentenced not to death but to service. He would work in the medical facilities, helping the stillness victims that Nari was slowly curing. Perhaps in time he would understand. 2 years after the battle, Taeyang prepared to return to Earth. His work was done. His children were grown, leading the Empire into a new age. It was time for him to go home. Will you visit? Yona asked, hugging him goodbye. As often as I can, but you don't need me anymore. You're leaders now. We'll always need you, Jiwan said. You're our father. That doesn't change. And you taught us the most important thing, Nari added, how to choose who we want to be. Vieira came to see him off as well. Thank you, she said simply. For everything. Thank you for choosing me, Taeyang replied. For trusting humanity. I didn't just choose you. I chose hope, she smiled. And hope has a way of spreading. Taeyang boarded a ship with Hana heading back to human space. As they left Valterra Prime behind, he looked back at the world ship where his children lived. They were waving 3 small figures against the massive structure. Do you regret it? Hana asked. Any of it? Not for a second, Taeyang said. I helped create the future. A future where humans and aliens can be family, where different species can work together instead of fighting. That's worth everything. Back on Earth, Taeyang was celebrated as a hero, but he didn't feel like one. He just felt like a father who had done his best with an impossible situation. The Soul Accords became the foundation for the Galactic Alliance, a union of species working together. Human technology mixed with Valtharian bioengineering created wonders. Nari's healing abilities led to cures for diseases across 100 worlds. Yona's telepathy helped species understand each